Hydrogen sulfide, or H2S, is a highly toxic gas that poses serious health hazards to workers in the oil and gas industry. Exposure to H2S can have immediate and long-term effects on the human body, including respiratory problems, neurological damage, and even death. Therefore, it is critical for workers to understand the hazards of H2S and take necessary measures to prevent exposure. Hazards of H2S. H2S is a potent toxic gas that can affect the body in several ways, depending on the duration and intensity of exposure. Short-term exposure to high concentrations of H2S can cause respiratory failure, loss of consciousness, and even death within minutes. Even at lower concentrations, H2S can cause irritation of the eyes, nose, and throat, as well as headaches, nausea, and dizziness. Long-term exposure to low levels of H2S can cause chronic respiratory problems, neurological damage, and reduced cognitive function. Control measures. To control and mitigate the hazards of H2S, several measures can be taken, including engineering controls, administrative controls, and personal protective equipment. Engineering controls include ventilation systems that can monitor and control H2S levels in the workplace. Administrative controls include procedures for monitoring and detecting H2S levels, as well as emergency response plans in case of H2S exposure. Personal protective equipment includes gas masks, respirators, and protective clothing that can protect workers from H2S exposure. Emergency procedures. In case of H2S exposure, immediate action is necessary to prevent serious health consequences. The first step is to evacuate the area and seek fresh air. If the worker is experiencing respiratory distress or loss of consciousness, they should be given immediate medical attention. It is important to alert emergency responders and provide them with accurate information about the exposure, including the duration and intensity of exposure, the location of the worker, and the symptoms they are experiencing. In addition, workers should be trained in first aid and emergency response procedures, including CPR and the use of AEDs. In conclusion, H2S is a serious hazard that requires careful attention and proper control measures to prevent exposure. By understanding the hazards of H2S and implementing appropriate control measures, workers can protect themselves and their colleagues from the harmful effects of this toxic gas. It is also essential to have emergency response plans in place and ensure that workers are trained in emergency procedures to respond quickly and effectively in case of H2S exposure.